Hello and welcome to a new series of mine named Vanilla and Royal Differences in Persona 5. Throughout this series I'm going to detail most of the differences between the vanilla and royal versions of Persona 5. In this video specifically, we're going to be looking at the major changes between both games. This first video will likely be the only one in the series to have little to no spoilers in it. The main reason for this is because this video appeals to people who either haven't played Persona 5 or have played Persona 5 Vanilla but not Royal, and can help them make the decision on which version of the game to play. Hence why I wouldn't want to spoil their experience with either version of the game. The reason the decision between Royal and Vanilla may be more difficult than you think is because despite Royal being the definitive version of the game, it is also far more pricey, and not everyone may think the changes made in Royal are worth the extra cash. This video can be used by said people to decide which version is better suited for them. Before we begin, however, allow me to disambiguate all of the games with Persona 5 branding on them, as I have seen many people get confused on what the different Persona 5 games are. There are 4 different games that carry the Persona 5 branding, the first of which being Persona 5, released in 2017. This is the original version of Persona 5, and the one that I will be referring to as the vanilla version throughout this series. This is a game that started it all for Persona 5, and is likely the game people are referring to when they say they've played Persona 5 before. The next game I want to go over is Persona 5 Royal, which released in 2020. Persona 5 Royal is an enhanced re-release of vanilla Persona 5. It's called an enhanced re-release because it's not exactly a remake of its original game like, for example, Final Fantasy VII Remake is to Final Fantasy VII. Royal is still in the same engine as the original game and retains a lot of the same content. The best way to think about Royal is just an improved version of the original game, as it adds more content and adds tons of quality of life changes, as well as just changing around a lot of the things that people didn't like about the original Persona 5. I really want to stress the fact that this is not a sequel to the original Persona 5. Persona 5 Royal has all of the content of the original Persona 5, plus a final chapter added at the end of the game. The 2 games we've gone over so far, the original or vanilla version of Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal, are the 2 games I'm going to be covering within this series. But very quickly before we start, how about we go over the last 2 Persona 5 games? The first of which is Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight, released in 2018. Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight is a spin-off of the original Persona 5 game, and it's what the title implies, it's a dancing game. Well, more so a rhythm game, and the characters just happen to be dancing. Either way, it features songs and remixes from Persona 5, as well as some other Persona games. And finally, we have Persona 5 Strikers, released in 2021. This is the newest addition to the Persona 5 family, and it is a spin-off of the original game. However, this spin-off is a lot more in-depth than pretty much every other Persona spin-off up until this point. And I'm not even talking only Persona 5, I'm talking the entirety of the Persona series. This is probably the most fully fledged spin-off they've had yet, which you can tell because the price is a lot higher than the other ones. This is a canon sequel to the original Persona 5, and takes place a few months after the events of the original game. Persona 5 Strikers is different than the original game, however. It's not a turn-based combat RPG like the original Persona 5, instead this is an action RPG hack-and-slash type game. This one I'd highly recommend playing after the original Persona 5 or Persona 5 Royal, considering it's a continuation of the events that happen in those games. And those are the 4 iterations of Persona 5. I hope those who didn't understand the difference between the 4 Persona 5 branded games understand the difference now. As I said earlier, this series is going to be going over the differences between the original Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal. So without further ado, let's get into the major changes between vanilla Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal. Now, throughout this series, I'm going to be playing and covering the English dub version of Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal. Whether you play the game with Japanese or English voices, it's not like it changes the way the game plays or anything, so they're exactly the same in that respect, it's just the way I prefer to play the game. Now let's get on with the changes. In Persona 5 Royal, textures and models look better. This is in part due to the fact that the Phantom Thieves models have been ripped from Persona 5 Dancing, rather than being ported over from the original game. Also due to the fact that the vanilla Persona 5 was likely held back graphically due to needing to be developed on the PS3 as well as the PS4. Persona 5 Royal was only developed for the PS4 and could use the better technology to its benefit. Also, Persona 5 Royal has the added benefit of being able to run in 4K on the PS4 Pro, as well as on the PS5 via backwards compatibility. In vanilla Persona 5, all character portraits are very similar, regardless of what emotion the character may be portraying. In Persona 5 Royal, most characters have more poses for their portrait expressions. Here is a quick comparison on screen to show you what I mean. On the left side of this image is a character's default portrait. Then on the right side is a different portrait that is supposed to convey a different emotion. You can see where the similarities are. Now let's do the same comparison but with the royal version of these portraits. In the royal version you can clearly tell where the differences were made. I'll do this with 2 more characters before moving on.
by the 4 to 3, 2, one more time. Heavy punchline about the proof.
Persona 5 Royal adds 3 new important characters to Persona 5. These characters are Kazumi Yoshizawa, Takado Maruki, and Jose. Kazumi and Maruki are both confidants. Kazumi represents the Faith Arcana, and Maruki represents the Counselor Arcana. Not including DLC personas, Persona 5 Royal adds 14 new usable personas to the game, and 1 new treasure demon. Persona 5 Royal adds a new palace to the game, but I won't be saying much about it to avoid spoilers. However, I will tell you about the conditions that you must meet to actually be able to play this palace, as it's the only palace in Persona 5 Royal that you can actually entirely skip over. However, you wouldn't want to because, it's quite good. Accessing this palace is only possible if you max out Maruki's Confidant. This is something that must be done by November 18th, as that's the cutoff day for his Confidant. Well, in reality, you only manually have to get him to rank 8, because rank 9 and 10 will happen automatically if you've gotten him to rank 8. Persona 5 Royal adds a Grappling Hook to the game. This Grappling Hook can't be used at will and can only be used when your hand is flashing blue, aka whenever the game puts down somewhere for you to grapple. However, it's still a good mechanic because it gives you multiple routes in some areas where in vanilla you would only have one route to take, even if the Grappling Hook routes are pretty much always the better routes to take. Here is a quick comparison between the vanilla and royal versions of just one area where the Grappling Hook can be used.
Show me your true form. Oh, so easy, I'm yawning. This isn't good. It might be hard to get through here.
Royal adds a new third semester to the game, and this third semester is accompanied by new cutscenes, new characters, a new story arc, and a new palace, and much more that I won't get too in depth to because of spoilers. However, I will say that during this third semester, your party members can actually get a third awakening to their personas if you get them to max rank, and then hang out with them an extra time. Similar to the second awakenings, among other things, it'll give your party member's persona a new skill, but unlike the second awakenings, it will not be a passive skill to help them against their weakness. Rather, every party member has their own unique third awakening skill, and they're all really good. In addition to Kazumi and Maruki being new confidants, Akechi's confidant has changed in between vanilla and royal. In vanilla, his confidant was automatic, while in royal it is now manual. Because of this, almost every rank for Akechi's confidant is now completely new in royal. Furthermore, in royal, almost every confidant in the game has been rebalanced in one way or another. Most of these balancing changes are quite good, and make some confidants that weren't so good in vanilla quite good in royal. I will not be going into detail about the confidant changes just yet, but there will be a separate video in this series detailing the changes of confidants in Royal. Persona 5 Royal contains all of the DLC from the vanilla version of the game for free. Furthermore, Royal also adds its own paid DLC. These DLC include 6 outfit bundles, a battle bundle, which mainly includes optional challenge battles against the protagonists of Persona 3 and 4, and a Persona bundle, which adds 4 new Persona to the game. In vanilla Persona 5, there are 49 trophies. In Royal, there are 53, however, the trophies in Royal are significantly easier than most of the ones in vanilla. The reason for this is likely because getting trophies in Royal means a lot more than it does in vanilla, because getting trophies in Royal is actually tied to getting different themes of the characters for your PS4. However, if you want to achievement hunt for harder accomplishments in Royal, no worries, as the Thieves Den adds challenges to the game, which essentially work like trophies. And while we're on the topic of the Thieves Den, Persona 5 Royal adds the Thieves Den to the game. To put it short, the Thieves Den is basically a little area where you can look at everything in the game. To briefly go over every area, there's first the Palace Maker. Basically what the Palace Maker is you can place a bunch of things you've seen throughout the game and kind of, I guess, make your own palace, but not really. It's really just a way to view the more standout objects in the game. You can also get a lot of new interactions with Persona 5's characters in it. There's the music area where you can play and listen to a bunch of the music that plays throughout the game. There's a movie section where you can watch things like the cutscenes that play throughout the game, the trailers for the game, and a lot of other stuff. There's the gallery area where you can look at photos from throughout the game, some concept art, and some other special stuff. And there's the Tycoon area where you can play a card game named Tycoon with the characters from Persona 5. I have spent so much time playing this. Also, playing Tycoon gives you some of the Thieves Den currency as well. Persona 5 Royal adds a new battle mechanic to the game named Showtimes. Showtimes are attacks that are randomly triggered in battle and can do a good amount of damage to one enemy. Showtimes trigger an animation between 2 of Persona 5's characters, and honestly, they're all just really fun to watch. Royal adds a new thing called will seeds to each palace. There are 3 will seeds in each palace in the game, and when you find all 3, or by the ones that you missed off Jose and Mementos, you get an accessory based off one of the 7 deadly sins, specifically the deadly sin that corresponds with the palace you got it in. When you give one of these accessories to Jose, he turns it from a crystal accessory to a ring accessory, and it basically becomes an even better version of itself. Each ring accessory has 2 skills associated with it, a passive skill and a regular skill, with the exception of the Ring of Lust, which only has a regular skill. And these accessories are some of the best accessories in the game, so I wouldn't miss out on them if I were you. Oh, and each skill these accessories give to you also have a really cool, unique animation to them. Since Royal adds a lot of new content to the game, there's also new songs to go with it. Give or take, there's about 30 new songs added in Persona 5 Royal. One of the more notable additions to the soundtrack is that now almost every layer of Mementos has its own song. I'm really glad they did this because while I don't mind the original Mementos theme, it does get tiring after a while. If you have save data from the vanilla Persona 5 on your PS4 and you play Persona 5 Royal, you get a special bonus which consists of a few items and 50,000 yen. That is a really lame bonus. An entirely new area with tons of new things is added in Persona 5 Royal named Kichijoji. There's a lot of new things to play around with in here, so I won't go over all of them, but I will mention the 2 most important ones. The first of which being the Darts and Billiards Club Penguin Sniper. Now, believe it or not, in the Darts and Billiards Club, you play darts and billiards. Darts has an actual minigame to it, and playing it with different party members ups your baton pass level with them. Upping your baton pass level gives you extra benefits when you perform a baton pass in battle, and playing billiards after reading a few billiards related books in game can up your technical rank with your party members. Furthermore, playing darts and billiards can also help you up your social stats and get Confidant points. The second thing I want to talk about in Kichijoji is the Jazz Club. The Jazz Club works differently in which you can invite your party members into the Jazz Club on different days and up some of their stats. Inviting a party member on Sunday can teach them a move that they perhaps otherwise would have never learned. In Persona 5 Royal, Morgana tells you to sleep less than he did in Vanilla. I know this doesn't sound like a big deal, but it was a big enough deal for a bunch of articles to be written about it and it to be a part of the advertising campaign for the game, so yeah. He tells you to sleep less. You're welcome. Some scenes in Persona 5 Royal have been retranslated to be more accurate. Furthermore, a lot of scenes in Persona 5 Royal have been voiced when they previously were not in Vanilla, and it's actually a quite significant amount. Throughout this series, I will likely be indicating which scenes have been voiced in Royal when they weren't voiced in Vanilla. For now, I'm going to give one example in this video.
You're a guy, right? You know what I mean. Let's give it a try. Yeah? Yeah? Luckily, some guy on my floor just moved out, so there's a vacant apartment in my complex.
Many of the palaces and bosses have been revised in Royal to fix some of the things that people didn't quite like about them in the vanilla version of the game. The spectrum of how much they've been changed from vanilla really differs from boss to boss and palace to palace, but I can pretty confidently say that most of the palaces and bosses have been made better in Royal. Here's a quick comparison of just one fight between vanilla and Royal. In Vanilla Persona 5, after you beat Madarame's face phase, he goes into his regular form in which you just attack him for a few turns, and then he goes back into the face form, and you repeat that until he's dead. In Royal, he goes into an entirely new phase where he creates a bunch of clones of himself, and they're all weak to different elements. And changes like this persist all throughout Persona 5 Royal's bosses, but of course we'll get into that as the series continues. Persona 5 Royal adds 2 new types of shadows to the game. The first being Savage Shadows, which are shadows that are considerably stronger, kind of like mini-bosses, but a little bit weaker. They're marked in red mist and have considerably higher stats than any other enemies in the palace they're in. Disaster Shadows randomly show up in battle, and they're enemies that explode once you kill them. When they explode, they damage any other enemies in the battle. However, if you do hit them and don't kill them, they'll retort by doing a pretty powerful attack. And finally, for the last major difference that I think is in Persona 5 Royal, Persona 5 Royal adds Persona traits to the game. What this means is every Persona in the game has a trait, and traits work kind of similarly to the way passive skills work in battle. What these Persona traits can be are things like you do more counter damage, SP costs are reduced on some skills, healing skills do more healing, and things like that. And that's every major change I think was made in between Persona 5 Vanilla and Persona 5 Royal. In the next video in this series, we'll be comparing the differences between the introduction of Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal, and the entirety of the Kamoshida arc. If you know any differences in the introduction or Kamoshida arc between Vanilla and Royal, feel free to leave them in the comments section, and I may put them in the video. Also, if you want to see me tweet stupid Persona stuff, you can follow my Twitter at Screenments. Or if you want to watch me make stupid Persona stuff, you can follow my Twitch, although no promises that I'll stream very often. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.